Carolyn Dube here. Oh, what's the play for today? Well, today I'm making some Christmas cards. I have a rock solid, guaranteed to work plan in my head. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And when that happens, I know it's so not gonna go that way, because every time I think I know exactly what to do, nope, it always ends up changing. So I'm not sure what exactly is going to happen here, but I know by the end of this video, I'm going to have some Christmas cards made. Now, what am I going to be using? Well, I want to make some really simple, quick tree shapes and put them on cards. These are not going to be overdone or uber fancy. These are quick and dirty kind of cards. And one of the things I really believe is use what you have on hand, whatever you've got nearby to do something. And I happen to have a whole lot of poured paintings, so that's what I'm going to be using for my paper for this. Now the canvases, by the way, that I'm using, these are ones that I like, but they are not ones that I love. So if you ever do paint pouring and you have some where you're like, man, I really like these, but they're just not ones that you love, this is a great way to use those. First thing we need to do is get these things off of the wooden stretcher bars. Using a craft knife here, I am just going right along the edges, and I'm not even being that precise about it. I just need to get this thing cut off of here. By the way, the safest knife to use is the one with a sharp, fresh blade. So please do yourself a favor when you're doing this. Put a fresh blade in your knife. That way it'll be a lot easier for you to cut through things. That concludes our public service announcement here of keeping a fresh blade in your knife. Now let's start turning these into cards. They've both been cut off of the wood, and I've got a bunch of blank greeting cards, and I just want to put a really simple tree shape on them. Think really big triangle that's going to take up a lot of that white space, and then a little rectangle to be the stem, the stalk, the trunk, whatever we call those things on a tree. And look how fast and easy that was to cut out. Quick, simple lines, big triangle, no sweat here. I'm just going to cut off the little rectangle here, and these are going to be quick and easy because I need these in a hurry to get them mailed out in time. And well, yeah, sure, maybe I should have started on this 2 months ago, but I didn't. But I've got this great idea for these things just going to go super quickly. It's going to be really simple. There's not going to be a lot of thinking, and these are going to be done. And I'm going to be able to send out handmade cards with that personal touch. Well, that was the plan, and you can probably figure out by now that the plan is not going to go as planned, or else this video would be almost over about now. Since I've got one of them cut out, it's going to become my template to cut the others out. By simply holding it over the space and cutting, I magically have 2 trees very, very quickly. So on one 8x10 canvas, I can get about 4 of these trees cut out and have scraps left over to create the trunks for the trees. This is a quick way to cut because they're just big straight lines. There's no fussy cutting involved because I really don't enjoy doing fussy cutting. I get very impatient with it. Oh, and if you think that's a little foreshadowing, a little hint of what is to come, you are absolutely correct. Well, I repeated this process until I had 8 cards. And for the most part, these all went in the same way, but there was one that there was an oops on. Can you see it on the far left on the bottom? It's got a different shape of a trunk. It's kind of got a triangular trunk instead of a rectangle. And I kind of like how that looked. It really drew my eye, and I thought, maybe I need to change things up a little bit. Maybe I don't want things to just be these straight trees. So I took the scissors and I started putting a little bit of a curvy edge. Nothing difficult. I want some simple cuts here because, like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting. I mean, I love how it looks, and I love it when other people do it. But for me to do it, I'm just not that patient. So as I do this onto this tree, quite frankly, it looks almost like a big poop emoji. And so I realized that's really not what I want to send to people in a Christmas card, being a rainbow poop emoji with a tree trunk on it. So yeah, gonna have to do something a little different here. I decided to grab the scissors and kind of trim it up more like a tree. Basically go with a little more hint of realism here and make it look like there are a few branches sticking off the side. Now this isn't going to be a fancy tree. I mean, I used to make a bazillion of these over the holidays doing bulletin boards and classroom decorations when I was a school teacher. So doing these kind of trees is no big deal, or so I thought. And so I go through and I do this, and when I test to see how I like that one side, I'm like, all right, it's kind of workable. I could go with this. And that's when I remembered that, oh yeah, I used to fold this in half when I did it, and then I drew the branches on it with a pencil loosely, just on one side so that when I cut it, it had a symmetrical look to it. Turns out, when you take a triangle that, say, is not mathematically perfectly shaped, kind of eyeballed, and you try and fold it in half to trace the pattern on the other half, you'll get something similar on the other side, but it's not going to be exactly symmetrical, and it's also going to have a wee bit of another kind of look to it. Have you ever seen the Charlie Brown Christmas special? The one where he has a Christmas tree that maybe has about 3 pine needles on it and they hang 1 or 2 little ornaments on it, but a pretty sad looking little tree there. That's kind of how I'm feeling about this one when I put it down on the card. When I was all done trimming it up, it just, well, did not look the way I thought it would in my head. So yep, we're calling this one an oops tree, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Now this tree may not have turned out quite the way that I wanted, but it did lead me to start cutting the other trees. So without this oops, I never would have gone to the next step. But I will say there was a little bit of adventure with the next step too. After seeing the oops tree, I decided I wanted to put branches on all of these. I no longer wanted those easy to cut straight lines, but I've already cut them out. So I needed to make sure that I created branches that would fit within that. So I thought I'd make a paper one first to see if I got it the way I liked. I mean, how hard could this be, right? When I opened up the tree pattern, it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't like it whatsoever. The proportion was all wrong. As if the Queen of England had invited me to make her Christmas cards this year, I was being critical of these trees. All these little things that just weren't quite right about them. So, the first pattern didn't work, then what am I going to do? I'm going to do it again, because by golly, I need to make the Queen of England happy with this card. Once I get into a mindset like this, where it absolutely must look a certain way, and by golly, I'm going to keep working on this until I get it, I know that I'm falling into a trap. The trap of trying to get it just right. That's the polite way to say perfect. And perhaps you've fallen into that trap too. And about this point, I'm getting frustrated cutting out trees, because no matter what I'm doing, there's something wrong with each and every one of them. That the branches just, well, they're not quite this, they're not quite that. So yes, what am I going to do? I'm going to try again to do a different pattern. My frustration level is going up and up and up, which turns out to be a great thing, because that frustration is going to get me to give myself a little bit of a head slap and just go, do it. Just go with what you have. So I finally took one of the patterns, put it on the back of one of the trees, and then traced around it with a pencil so that it could guide me when I was cutting it out with the scissors. Now, if you remember earlier, I said how much I don't like fussy cutting, and to me, this is fussy cutting. But I was feeling so stubborn that by golly, I was going to make these trees look this way that I actually didn't mind doing the fussy cutting. And I didn't mind it on this one, and I actually didn't mind doing it on any of them, which kind of surprised me. So after I've done this to 2 of them, I went through and did the same process for the remaining 6. Now one of these trees does not look like the others. That would be on the bottom right. And that's because, well, that one just didn't go well. And so I decided I'm just going to trim this up and turn it into a really skinny tree. See if I like how that looks. And the answer is a big old nope, don't like that one bit. So that one we're just going to call a big oops. Don't know where it's going to go, but it's not going to go into a Christmas card right now. Not everything's a home run. This one I'm going to take out of here, and we're going to say we've got 7 cards. This looks pretty simple right now. All I have to do is attach them to the card. You'd think I'm home free, right? Oh no, the big questions are yet to come. The tree trunks. And I decided that whole rectangular thing really wasn't working for me, so I just flared them out a little bit, trimming them up so it's got a little more shape to it at the bottom. And then I realized, when I glue these things down, do I want the tree trunk touching the bottom of the card, or do I want this whole thing floating in the middle? I mean, this is going to be a huge question for this, because once I glue this down, I have committed for all eternity. Do I want these things floating in the middle of the card, or do I want them anchored by touching the bottom of the card? Because this was going to make or break the whole thing. Depending on where I glue this onto the card, that's going to determine whether the person that receives it even likes the card whatsoever. Yeah, you can tell I might have been doing just a little overthinking here and maybe putting a little too importance on a really minor decision. Well, after looking at these, I decided that I wanted to go with floating. Now, there are more big questions to be determined before we can even think about gluing these things down. Like the tree trunks, are they going to be straight or are they going to be at an angle? And what about the trees themselves? Are they going to be straight or perhaps at a little bit of an angle? Are these going to be whimsical trees or are we straight and rigid kind of trees? And you know what? This really was a big decision for me that I have to tell you, it's almost embarrassing how much thought I put into what the positioning on the card these trees would be. And I'm pretty sure most of the people that I'm going to send these to are not going to notice this whatsoever. They're just going to go, hey, what a fun, colorful tree. So maybe what I should do is stop thinking about all this stuff, just put them on the card. Let's get these things glued on and call them complete. All I need to do now is get the glue stick. See, glue sticks are the best thing that I've found to glue canvas down to the card. Because if you use something like gel medium, it tends to have a lot more moisture in it and things will wrinkle and that kind of stuff. You know, paper will warp when it gets wet. So glue stick is the way to go. Holds it down well, it's easy to work with. But guess what? I'm completely out of glue sticks. Not a one anywhere. How could I not have any? So that means I can't glue it down with that, so I'm gonna have to go with something else. I'm gonna have to use something that I have on hand because, well, I want to finish these up. So that means I'm gonna use double-sided tape for this. But there's a problem when you're using double-sided tape on canvas is because it doesn't really want to stick to it. So there's something very specific that I want in my double-sided tape to make it easy for me to get these things attached. Here's the thing about putting double-sided adhesive on something like canvas. The tape doesn't have a lot to grab onto, so that means it doesn't have a good attachment the way it does with paper. It'll work great on paper, but it's the canvas side that I want to get to stick. So here's the thing that I look for when I'm looking for tape. I want tape that it's easy to pull the backing off of. And of course, it's all like nearly impossible to see on camera here, so I've made a handy visual aid. Imagine that black part is the adhesive, and the white part here, that's that removable cover, the wax paper part. You want your tape to be narrower than the cover, so basically it's easy to grab up. That you're not having, you know when you have to use your fingernail to get the backing off of double-sided tape? You don't want to do that with canvas. Because if you have to work that hard to get it off, there's a big chance it's not going to stick to the canvas. So that's why I went with the scrapbook adhesives tape, because it has that, so it's going to make it really easy to pull it off. At long last, we're actually going to attach these things to the card. When I put the double-sided tape on here, I'm going to use my fingernail and just kind of push it down, burnish it down a little bit, just to give it a chance to really grab onto the canvas. Because again, we're asking double-sided tape to do a lot here to hold onto this canvas. And then it's really easy to pull the backing up when the tape is smaller than the backing, the way this stuff is. Position it where I want it, and then it's a matter of just stick it down. Then I'm going to do the same thing, but using a shorter piece of the tape to do the tree trunk. And then I'm just going to repeat this process until everything is attached. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, if you've had fun, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll know as soon as I have a new video out. If you'd like to know more of what I'm up to, learn about paint pouring, about other workshops that I've got, check out my website over at colorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.